What's up, everybody? Okay, before we get started, like always, please like and subscribe. That gets my information out there. It gives me exposure out on YouTube. It's the currency of YouTube. The point of this video and our topic is how long for stabilization in a self-storage facility's development. Okay, when developing a self-storage facility, stabilization is obviously very important. That's where you fill up to a stabilized rate. Normally speaking, that's somewhere between 80 and 90%. Okay? It doesn't mean break even, right? So break even may be lower, but it's stabilizing it to a normal path that you want it to be on. Now, different market cycles and at different times in the economy, this can change wildly. I know facilities that have taken 5 years to fill up now, today, as in they just finally got full 5 years later. I know facilities that have filled up in 6 months. This is wildly different, and this can either make or break you. There are some facilities that have not gotten to stabilization and they're years into it. I honestly wonder if they even will. Now, first of all, self-storage is very micro.
Wait, what does that mean exactly?
So, micro demand is very, very important, and that's what we're gonna spend the most of the time probably talking about. But we need to talk about the overall demand. In my last video, you'll remember we talked about what stage the self-storage industry is in. That video is important to understand this video. So you can go back and watch it. It's probably one of the most important videos that I've made, but it'll also give you a lot of context for this video and understanding. In short, we are at the end of a massive, maybe not the end, I can't predict the end, but we are in the later stage of a massive development cycle that has gone on in this industry. The largest one we have ever seen.
Oh my God, would you look at the size of that thing?
Historically speaking, self-storage facilities filled up around 3 years. But lately, in a lot of markets, they have been filling up in a much shorter period of time, 2 years or less. And a lot of people believe that that's just how it works. This is scary. In fact, I've seen feasibility studies that people have put forth saying you'll fill up in 6 months. That is reckless.
You are reckless.
I would never plan on anything under a 3-year fill up. Now, I should preface, I've never taken 3 years to fill up one of our developments. But we are super niche and we are really good at analyzing demand. Plus, our marketing capabilities combined with technology and product selection are really, really good. Even with that, I do not plan on anything less than 3 years. I never would. You know, it's really hard to kind of express why I think that a 3-year fill up is not standard but should be mandatory. But let me kind of explain here why I think this. So when you're looking at the life cycle from a time a storage facility opens up to the time that it fills up, okay? These 2 points is what we're talking about. This is important to understand. We're talking about you open your doors and then you fill up. You have a whole nother years before we even get to this. So if you're looking at your overall life cycle of a development to stabilization, it could be 5 years. In some markets, it's more. So for me to go buy a piece of property and say, I know what's gonna happen in 5 years, that's ridiculous. You don't.
You don't know that!
So saying that in 2 years, once I get this thing up, I'm going to fill up in 6 months is ludicrous. We all know how fast the world changes. Think of the last 2 years alone. Think of the last 10 years. At any point of the last 15 years, if you said you knew what was gonna happen in 5 years, you may have been right once and it would have been luck. The world changes quickly. The government changes how they do. What interest rates will affect us. How things are gonna happen. Black swans, viruses, on and on and on and on.
You don't know.
So, although my capabilities, I believe, are extraordinarily strong, and because that market is very, very strong, first of all, I don't know if it'll be strong when we open our doors. And second of all, I don't know if my capabilities can overcome a downturn in the market. Maybe there'll be new competition. Maybe interest rates will rise quickly and the housing market will shut down and you'll see mass mass vacancies across self-storage and everyone's dropping prices. Now I have to lower my overall underwriting price and I have to extend out because I was planning on a 1-year fill-up. Now I'm dropping my rental rates, my revenue by huge percentages. My stabilization in that given market is not 90% anymore. Everyone has vacancy and it extends out to 3+ years. The problem with that is you may not make it because you didn't plan for it.
What was your plan?
I didn't think about it.
You don't have the reserves. Now you got to go to investors yourself or you just lose the property. I've bought a lot of properties from people in this situation. They lost it. And banks sell it to me a lot cheaper than people sell it to me on the market. They don't care. They just want to get rid of it. We bought things pennies on the dollar in self-storage for this mistake. They were not prepared. So for someone to give another person a feasibility study that says you're going to fill up in 6 months, that's basically trash. What do you do with that? Don't give it to a bank. The bank's going to not take it anyways. The bank needs a 3-year fill-up. So, extreme caution on this. Plan as if it's not as good as it is today. You want to know why? It's probably not going to be. This is the big problem we have in self-storage right now. You have people that have been in self-storage for the last 4 or 5 years. They think they're geniuses.
I'm a genius.
Yeah, I know you are.
This has been the best 4 or 5 years that the self-storage industry has ever had. And a lot of it is fluff. A lot of this is due to government intervention. They're stimulating a market that is not normal. This is not a normal cycle we are in. So to expect this cycle to continue, it's dangerous. Don't do it. We right now are at the highest price point and the highest amount of square footage coming onto the self-storage market ever. I'm not trying to be a downer. I am not trying to say that self-storage is going to do bad. Of course not. I'm developing and buying more than I ever have. Now I'm doing it very differently and I'm being very, very cautious. And I'm planning for the worst in all of it. But self-storage is going to be awesome forever. But self-storage is not going to be as easy as it was. The product has changed. The people that are in the game have changed. It used to be build it and they will come. That's not how it works anymore. Competition is thick. The product selection, what the markets want, that's all changed. And it will continue to change.
Well, change is good.
So when analyzing the stabilization of your property, the first thing that you need to do is go micro. We need to look at the overall supply on the market. We do this as a square foot. So how much square foot per capita is in this market? Now, the reason for this is important, not because the square foot per capita will tell you if there's demand or not. I actually don't believe that, and that's been not true at all. I've had markets that have 6 square feet per capita that have been very, very poor, and markets that had 20 square feet per capita that had more demand than I've ever seen. And the things that affect this are everything from growth rates. It affects how houses are building, lifestyles, how people use storage in Florida versus New York versus the West and Midwest are all very different. And we see this reflected in how much space they overall use. And I haven't seen a standard to go across that actually fits. We have demographics, we have growth rates, we have how the cities were planned and built, you have basements, you have overall house sizes, how many people own homes, what their incomes are, how many people are in multifamily, and this changes all the time, and this will all affect that square foot. So why is it important to know? The real reason I think it's important to know is I want to see the total square footage in a market per capita, and then I want to see how I'm going to affect it. Let me share an example. If I'm going into a market that has, let's say, 200,000 square feet, right? If I'm going to build a facility in that market that has that's 100,000 square feet, I'm increasing the market supply by 50%. Once you start to get into changes in the marketplace that are really above 15%, the probability of achieving certain metrics gets very vague and it gets very fuzzy because there's no real way you can know if that market can absorb a 50% increase in supply. You just can't. I don't care who you are. We can't, magically know. We're not God. So when you get above this level, the more you go up, the less reliable that stabilization period will be. That's the first thing that I look for. If I'm increasing that market by 5%, and there's not even a unit for available and everybody's raising their prices, then yeah, I'm going to be inconsequential in that market. I'll build and none of the storage facilities around will even fill it. They won't even know, right? Now, if I'm increasing it by 15% and there's already vacancy in that market, and maybe we've stagnated on rising rates, which is happening across the country, okay, well, now I know that it's going to be a longer fill-up period. There's already inventory across the market that people aren't taking. So if I go and add a whole bunch more, why will they take it? That leads into the next part. Stabilization periods have more to do with product selection. I call them products. Units to me are not, it's not real estate, it's a product. And I'm looking for product market fit. And the people that do that best have the fastest and quickest fill-up rates, because they're not just throwing on units that are already out there, that are vacant, or that there's no demand. They're only putting products that the market needs and has high demand for. We've used this across all our developments, and it works astronomically well. We're very picky, and we're trying to match the highest and most demand in that market. You do that correctly, and it can really shorten up your overall stabilization rate. If you miss this, it can be devastating. I brought a facility that had 4 buildings that were 5x5s. Now, this was a very large facility. That amount made up maybe 30% of the overall facility, but there wasn't demand for that much 5x5s. So 30% of their facility had maybe 10% occupancy. What it resulted was the facility was at 60% occupied, and they just dropped the rates on all their prices. But it was only one unit type that people didn't want. We came in, we bought it, we changed that, did a product market fit. We raised prices on all of the units that had high demand. We changed the units that nobody wanted into units that they did want. We filled up very, very quickly, and our revenue skyrocketed. That was a quick double. We're talking about a year, year and a half. Why did they mess up? First of all, product market fit. And second of all, they treated each one the same. The square foot is the square foot, which doesn't work. Okay, that's the first thing those are the first things that we're looking for on your stabilization period. The next thing that you need to look for on your stabilization period is the overall growth rate of that market. Markets that have high growth rates generally have high stabilization periods. Why? Because there's turning going in the market, and a huge percentage of self-storage is used from churn. People moving, doing things. That's a very, very big percentage of what is being utilized. But that is really how we get customers. Like, that's how we get the customers in. Then a huge portion of them stay, then others leave, and you have this constant occupancy level that is churn. Why that's important to know. If you have a stagnant market, let's say that interest rates rise and the housing market slows way down, those growth rates will start to stall out. That movement stops, and fill-up rates drop quickly. Not only do they drop quickly, but other storage facilities are also not having churn. Their occupancy starts to drop. They now have product that you never even put into your underwriting available on the market. So everything that you've underwritten in your whole entire model has now changed.
Everything has changed.
That's why you give yourself a long time to fill up. If you fill up in 6 months, congratulations, that's amazing. But you should never, ever plan on it. Hope this was helpful. Once again, like, subscribe. Thanks, everybody.